Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Cafecito. I hope you're all doing amazingly well, and I can't believe like Q1 is done. Like that's it. We're off to the races to the next. We're very excited because we have our Brave Voices conference coming up on April 23rd. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's something that you don't want to miss. It's going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's unitedlatinas.com/brave voices. So make sure that you don't miss that out. And all the other events that we have happening as well, check them out on our website as well. So don't miss that. And today I am very excited, especially because I think this topic is critically important, just because of everything that's happening. And it's about how do we take a hold of our narrative as Hispanics, or understanding the Hispanic consumer, because there's a lot of narratives that are out there, and there's a lot of information that's out there, and not necessarily all the information is the right information. And in order for us to truly like make a difference, we need to have the correct information to make an educated decision. So I'm very excited to have here today our guest, Maria Parra, um, who will be talking about, all of this about the Hispanic consumer, the economic influence, the diversity and cultural affinity, so that we can be more educated as we move forward, and just sharing about a little bit more about, who we are. So thank you, Maria, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Liana, for the invitation. I'm very excited about being here. And you know that April 23rd is the day of my birthday. So,
Ah, there.
yes.
We'll light a little candle in your honor.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, many of us have heard, obviously, of the growth of the Hispanic market, but many haven't still. And I think this is a critical, again, point of data point, right? Information that we all need to know, because it's by understanding our growth, our impact, that we can truly like reframe how we show up in spaces, how we, if we're an entrepreneur, the importance of continuing to grow our business, or if we're a career professional, the value that we bring to the table. So if you can kick us off with, what does that really look like today?
Yes, it's something that is impressive. And I moved to the States 25 years ago. And when I moved to the States, the first job I had was as a Hispanic expert. And today I think that I wasn't a Hispanic expert. I was a Colombian moving to the States that was fluent in Spanish, bilingual at the same time. But I was an expert on the Hispanic market, because we are Hispanics doesn't necessarily mean that we know all the data and all the economical impact that we have. Um, Something that I usually talk about in presentations is the influence that this market has, starting with the size of the market. 19% of the population in the United States is Hispanic. That means that it's approximately 62 million Hispanics living in the United States. If we compare that with Latin America, if the Hispanic population were a country here, as part of the Latin America, it will be the second biggest Hispanic market after Brazil and Mexico, bigger than Colombia or Chile or Peru. So it's huge. We have like another Hispanic country within United States. Um, the buying power, people usually don't know this, but the buying power of the Hispanic population is approximately $2.5 trillion per year. We contribute to the US GPD 13% every year. And we're entrepreneur as well. Like, Hispanics tend to be entrepreneur. Like, based on the latest numbers that I have, Hispanics own over 3.3 million businesses in the United States. Can you believe that? It's huge. And we contribute $800 billion to the US economy every year. Um, Also, something that is very important is today, 25% of the babies born in the United States are Hispanics. And that's going to change in 10 years. Right now, it's 25%, 25%. And we are younger, believe it or not. Like, the median age of the Hispanics is 28 compared to the general population that is 38 years.
Sorry, I got here stuck with my mute button. That is really impressive because I think from information also that we receive consistently from the Latino Donor Collaborative and Ana Valdez, who they're great partners to United Latinas. Um, it's always understanding in the macro level that, to your point, from a not only from a population perspective but from an economic impact perspective, we are the fifth largest economy in the world, right?
Yeah,
And that sort of puts a different perspective to, oh my god, like that's the amount of money that we generate and that we contribute to this economy. So it puts us in perspective, and we're just, to your point, 20% of the population and significantly growing. So imagine what that could look like in the next 10 years. It's not like, 50 years, 100 years from now. It's literally like very at arm's length, the impact that we're having and that we're going to continue to have an influence in this country. So that becomes very important.
exactly, exactly. It's growing every year. It's not going back. It's growing every year, and you start finding more families that are more than one ethnicity. So maybe the mother is Hispanic, but the father is American, or the father is Asian. It's very very common, but the culture is still there.
And that was actually, I love that you bring that up because that was my next question. Like, is there any thing to keep in mind about how diverse our community is? Because, like you came from Colombia, I come from Mexico, and when we come here. Most of us that have immigrated, we have our heritage rooted in our original country, right? But then you come here and then you become a part of a larger group that's called Hispanics or Latinos, Latinas. And that is a completely different sort of mix and richness with a lot of things that are similar and then a lot of things that are not. So would love to hear your take.
That is absolutely true. And the first thing that happens a lot with Hispanics is that the majority of Hispanics that have immigrated to the States come from Mexico. That's approximately today 60% of the population, approximately. But there is a 40% that are not Mexican. And many companies, the way that they do marketing is thinking that the majority are Mexican origin, and forget about the 40% of the population that are not Mexican. And also the diversity is within the country, like depending of the area of the United States where we are located, the ethnicities and the countries of origin are different. So for instance, in California, of course, is majority Mexican and Central American. Similar in Texas, but in Texas you start seeing more diversity, more South Americans as well. You go to Chicago, and Chicago is again more Mexican. But then you go to the East Coast, and the East Coast is a melting pot. Like if you go to New York, it's mostly Cuban, Dominican, and Puerto Rican. No, no, Cuban is more Florida. Mostly Dominican and Puerto Rican and South Americans. And then you go to Florida and Miami specifically, it's Cuban and South American. And if you come here to Orlando, I'm based in Orlando. Orlando is becoming very Puerto Rican, Venezuelan, Brazilian as well. So it's a wide variety. So if you want to do a marketing campaign thinking that all the population is mainly Mexican, you are making a big mistake. Even for the United States, you have to tailor this based on the area of the country where we are located. Like I had the first presentation I did in a conference a couple of years ago was like, not all Hispanics eat spicy food, which is true. Like everyone thinks that we eat spicy food and we eat tacos, and I love tacos. And I became familiar with the spice when I moved to the States. But in Colombia, our cuisine is not spicy, same as in Argentina or in other countries of Latin America.
I love what you're saying because it's not only for corporations to understand, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's not only for large corporations to understand the nuances of how to address and how to reach our, Hispanic Latino consumers. However, it's also for us. If we look at the numbers, if I remember correctly, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Latinas open or create more small businesses than any other group right? In the United States, like I think the number is 6 times or 10 times more than any others.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also important for us to understand because we have a broader audience that we can also attract to whatever it is that we are offering services, products, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we just use the lens of the country that we come from, but we need to understand that there's a broader lens from a language, from a habits, practices, tradiciones, right?
Mm-hmm.
That perspectives that we need to bring into the table, and then the growth can be exponential. What
Mm-hmm.
have you seen in terms of what things do we keep in mind, from our brands, from our products, et cetera, to be able to connect with our different audiences in a way that also feels authentic, and not like a one size fit all, which I feel like with some brands, we've seen that a lot lately.
Yeah, especially with the total marketing strategies, like the way that even for myself that I do marketing research. When I started doing this 20 years ago, we used to have big Hispanic research projects covering different markets, different acculturation levels. And I'm going to talk about acculturation shortly. And then the total marketing strategy was a boom. And then because we decided that it was easier to do it this way, I started seeing projects where we only had maybe one group of Hispanics just to check the box. But many times, if this Hispanic speaks English, oh, we don't need only one group of Hispanic. We can have one Hispanic within the group with the rest of the group, and we forgot about understanding that the culture. And the culture is complex. So we usually talk about acculturation. That is the way that people assimilate the culture. It's been evolving, and today we're talking more about cultural affinity. It's still related to acculturation, but it's a different way to understand how we assimilate the culture to make sure that we are doing this the right way. Like for many years, and still many corporations still do this, acculturation models were segmenting Hispanics by language use and time in the United States, meaning that the longer you are in the States, and the less Spanish you speak, the more acculturated you are. But what is actually acculturation? Because I think about my kids all the time. Like, my kids were born here. They are exposed to two cultures every single day. It's not that they are acculturating or not acculturating or assimilating or not assimilating. It's how much exposure they have to the culture. And every family is completely different. Like in my case, it's been always important that they speak the language, that they visit the country every year, they understand the culture. But there are many other families where that is not important. So the way that they assimilate the culture, they connect with the culture is completely different. So now we talk more about cultural affinity because the assimilation is something that is not linear, like it's not a path to assimilation necessarily. So we take into consideration other things. Of course, sometimes years in the United States may impact how exposed you are to the culture. Sometimes language also, but not necessarily. Like, I remember, I don't know how many times when I'm doing a research project and we are recruiting the Hispanics for the project, the recruiter calls me and asks me, I don't know where to invite, to what group invite this person, because she's been in this country for 30 years, but she doesn't speak English. And she's supposed to be in this group because of the years in the United States, but she's not fluent in English. Well, because the way that she's been assimilating the culture is completely different. Or on the opposite side, last year, but in this case, we were more towards cultural affinity. I had this respondent in one of the interviews. He was completely fluent in Spanish, no accent at all. And when we started having this conversation, he was a third generation Hispanic, but he was in Texas, and he grew up in a family where culture was completely important. Or he was living the culture all the time, whereas he was exposed to the language. So this person is his cultural affinity is completely high compared to other person that is a third generation Hispanic. So we have to ask the right questions to understand how that cultural affinity and how exposed that person to the culture, and how relevant is for that person to maintain those cultural roots, um, before assuming that if this person was born or not born in the United States is acculturated or not acculturated. So it's complex. It's complex, and that's something that companies need to understand well. And that's a mistake that happens a lot of times when they conduct the research and then they say, I didn't find any significantly different with these respondents. I didn't need this research. Well, because we were not taking into consideration the cultural affinity. So maybe those respondents, that happens also a lot because many times it's easier to recruit Hispanics in English. Maybe they are not exposed to the culture anymore. Maybe the culture is not important for them anymore. So, of course, it's going to be more similar to a general market respondent. But if we recruit this the right way and check where in that path they are right now in terms of cultural affinity, they are going to get more. We're going to get more significant, more relevant insights.
I think you bring up an excellent point. And also, I imagine, because I'm living it myself here in my house, not only all of these levels that you just mentioned, but also the generational component, right? Because there's first, second, third generation, the background and lived experience that you have at home, but also, just from a generational perspective, right? It's not the same. You have your Gen Zs, your Gen Alphas, and how they're experiencing the world, because it's not only about the culture or the current environment, just through social media they are getting bombarded by other cultures as well, right? Like anime right now, and Korean culture very strong,
Yeah.
Asian
Oh.
culture very strong. So
Mm-hmm.
it becomes suddenly like an additional melting pot
Yep.
of language. The Nosabo kids, right? Very strong in our growing group in our Hispanic population. Then the how all of these other cultures are becoming integrated into one sort of thing that I am, right? Like one intersectional identity that is so rooted in things that I think that are my own. And then
Mm-hmm.
that the more seasoned generation, I'm gonna say, not the older generations, but the more seasoned generations are struggling with also, right? So
Yeah.
there's all of these additional components that come through social media. Is there anything like in particular that you've seen?
Yes, absolutely. I was going to say that social media has changed everything, has changed how we do marketing, how we do marketing research, but also has changed us as people because we are exposed to so many things today that we were not exposed before. Like social media initially, which was just a way to connect with people from different places, and now it's exposing us to other cultures, to other ethnicities, to different ways to see things. So we still keep our culture, and those things are part of our heart. But also we start integrating different things from food, from traditions. It's it's incredible how is that impacting, and that's the reason why I always keep going back to. That's the reason why when we check or try to segment respondents based on the acculturation or cultural affinity, we have to check all those things before coming to conclusions.
Absolutely. So, if somebody needs to make a decision, well, normally we all need to make decisions, but based on like our consumers, right? And how do we connect? Because right now, I think there's an information overload, and we need to be more quirúrgicos right
Mm-hmm.
now. Now the language is like blanking me, but we need to be more specific. We need to be more direct to who it is that we're actually want to attract, want to speak to, want to engage with, want to connect with. Like, what would you recommend as the like top three, four, five things that they need to consider when selecting or when thinking about like who is my consumer? Because before it was women 25 30 to 55 that speak Spanish or what, like they were very general terms into what you're saying right now. Now we need to think about it in many other different dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any like recommendations on what those dimensions could be or how we need to think about the consumers that we want to reach?
What I always recommend, and especially because everything comes back to budget, and usually there is a restricted or limited budget when it's related to Hispanics, is um, if I need to choose, I'll choose what we call bicultural, or the what or based on our cultural affinities, the heritage blender that is similar, that is approximately today 50 to 55% of the Hispanic population, and is the one that is growing faster. And those are the ones that are moving seamless between the Latino culture and other cultures that are using the Hispanic traditions, but also other traditionals at the same time. This segment usually is the one that when brands speak directly to them, they are encouraged and they connect with the brands, but also are looking for things that are not only Hispanic related. So that's the biggest area, or the biggest Hispanic segment today, the one that is growing the most, that is between a second or third generation, not necessarily a first generation Hispanic, and that tends to be younger. That's where I like, if I need to choose, is where I will focus all my attention. But I also what I also always recommend brands is be authentic. Like, if you want to connect with Hispanics, you need to do it because you really want to do it. Not only you do it during Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic Heritage Month is just an excuse to celebrate the culture, but you have to do it all year long. It's not only about translating what you are doing, because many times not even in Spanish needs to work necessarily. uh, it's just about, of course, make sure that you have things in Spanish or in English, but it's not only about having everything in Spanish without understanding exactly, or translating everything directly from English. You have to transcreate that and have it in Spanish, but not exactly the same that is working for general market is going to work for Hispanics. Those are like my main recommendations. On the opposite side, because it's looking this from a different perspective. Um, for me, the performance of Bad Bunny during the Super Bowl was the best example of authenticity. And I am not a big fan of Bad Bunny. I do not follow necessarily his music, but I think that in this case, for me, what he was portraying is that everything goes beyond language. It doesn't matter if you speak Spanish or not. The cultural cues were there so evident, and the way that he was connecting with the culture in an authentic way, like, this is my culture, this is what happens, and all the cultural cues that if you are not Hispanic or you are not even Puerto Rican, we wouldn't get. But it doesn't matter. In general, what the performance, you didn't have to be Hispanic, you didn't need to be to speak Spanish to understand what he was doing in a very authentic way. That's what companies need to do. But when they do it, really understanding this, and it's really a priority and something relevant, and they take the time to understand the community, is when they succeed.
I love that, and more this is going to become critically important for, again, for corporations to understand, and also like to anybody that wants to reach a target consumer or a target audience to grow their business, their services, their engagement, their awareness. We can't just continue to think about in two dimensions, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to think about in so many other ways, and in a way that truly connects with what we want to offer,
Mm-hmm.
and what we how we want to transform people's experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Maria, thank you so much for being here with us, for shedding a little bit of light into this very, very important topic. And we will continue the conversation to share even more information, because in order to be able to make educated decisions, we need to understand all of this. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
No, thank you. It's been an honor for me being here today, and happy to continue this conversation later.
Love to, love to. Awesome. Well, please connect with Maria. She is a long-standing United Latinas member, as well as many others that are deep experts in their fields. And that's what this community is all about, right? It's all about coming with each other, to sharing. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We already have, all of us invented it. So it's more about just coming together and sharing the knowledge and collaborating. So thank you so much, Maria, for being with us today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us always every week. Don't forget to check out Brave Voices on April 23rd. And we hope we see you there in Charlotte. Otherwise, we hope to see you next week at another Cafecito. Have a good one, everybody.